Good day, everybody. Meteorologist Mark Molnar here. How is everybody doing? Well, I hope if you're in southern and western Florida here that you're rushing your preparations to completion here, because this is Hurricane Ian, and if you take a look, it's taking a wobble towards the east here. So if you're in Cape Coral up to Englewood here, and look at these areas, Northport, Brandleton here, St. Petersburg, Tampa, yeah. It's taking a little bit to the right of a jog here. This takes Tampa Bay a little bit off the hook here, but not completely. It is going to be coming in as a solid Category 4 here. So if you are in Cape Coral up to Port Charlotte, Northport here, these are the areas that the major eastern eyewall is going to be plowing into. Now, if you're on the northern eyewall in Tampa, it's nothing to sneeze at. We're still going to be looking at tremendous amounts of heavy rain, wind, and tremendous surge coming in here. Now, take a look at this. As this continues to the north, look what happens. It makes landfall, and it comes across the Florida coast, and it may just end up on the Atlantic side. Let's take a look at all the models and analysis. All right, here's the satellite here of Major Hurricane Ian. Very well-defined eye. You can see it's going through some eyewall replacement cycles here, but the trend is towards the north, and you see how it's wobbling towards the east. I'm a little concerned about that as we head in time, because this storm has been going a little bit east of where the models are. There's going to be some wobbles, as does happen with these major hurricanes. All right, taking a look at Hurricane Ian here. I know some of you in the comment section have mentioned how weak my audio has been the last several videos. I am working on that. I did find out what the problem is. I haven't been given this great microphone all the juice and power it needs, so I need some hardware and software, and I've got this at 100% max, but it just doesn't have the power that it needs. So bear with me. I am going to speak directly into it here, and in the coming days, you can expect an audio boost. So take a look at this. Category 4 storm. It will barrel right into Englewood here and Northport. And Cape Coral and Fort Myers, you're going to be on the east side, as well as Naples, Marco Island here, and Everglades City. Up the coast, are you off the hook here, Tampa? Not necessarily. You're going to see the northern eyewall barrel in here. So watch this. This storm is growing in size. And take a look at this. As we continue off towards the northeast, Cape Coral, here it is, 11 p.m. This is Tuesday, but take a look at this. Wednesday at 5 a.m., the eyewall starts to show itself and start to come on shore. You can see the eye, very visible out here. It is going to be heading towards this direction. It's going to be piling the water up into these bays and inlets. So if you are staying behind, you're going to experience some tremendous water surge. Also with the initial eye wall up here, the northern eye wall into Tampa, initially the winds will be out of the south and southwest. So you'll start to get some surge coming in to Tampa Bay as well. So you're not completely immune, even though you will be on the western side of the storm. The winds will shift pretty quickly here once the storm moves to the northeast. So here is 8 a.m. There it is. You start to have the eye showing up here just off the coast here of Cape Coral. And Tampa, you're going to be getting some tremendous wind and rain up here. Take a look at this. Here is the eye. You can see it. It's starting to come on shore here near Cape Coral, just south of Northport here. So let's back that up just a few frames here. You can see. There it is. So take a look at this. This is 2 p.m. So this system's going to be riding right over Englewood and Northport and then heading on its way towards Orlando here. So once the storm makes landfall or just before landfall, your winds will shift. They'll start to shift here out of the north here in Tampa, which will start to push the water back away from the Bay Area here. So that's really good news. But this is not really good news for you down here in Port Charlotte area. Take a look at this. As this system rides inland, it's going to push all this water initially as well after it makes landfall. You'll still continue to see water rises here. This is 2 p.m. on Wednesday. So let's take a look as we continue to put this into motion. There it is. It's the eye is right over Englewood by 5 p.m. This is Wednesday, according to the GFS. And I'll show you the Euro and some of the other models as well. The eye is essentially by 8 p.m. It is inland here near Seidel, Pine Level, Acadia. You're experiencing the eye. Now take a look what's happening here behind the storm. You have all this dry air, which I'll show you momentarily on the humidity loop. There's tremendous dry air coming in behind the system, and it's being wrapped around. So you look at this over towards Fort Lauderdale down to Miami, West Palm Beach, you're going to see drying take place. So these feeder bands will completely cut off, which is great news. But you're still going to see tremendous amounts of rain and wind up here from Tampa up to Orlando and Ocala up here. So you're going to continue to watch this. It's going to be interesting in Cape Coral here because you're going to get a lot of surge, but not necessarily the tremendous amounts of rain. But you will get a lot of wind as well. So watch out for that. But look at the system starts to become a little lopsided. This is by 11 p.m. Wednesday. It starts to resemble more of a comma shaped here. You see all this dry air to the south and east of where the eye essentially is or should be. In Tampa, you're continuing to get pelted here. So you're going to see tremendous amount of rain up from Tampa up to Orlando here. It's still going to be a hurricane by this point, Category 1, as it heads inland. And look at this, Orlando, 2 a.m. Thursday, Daytona Beach, 8 a.m. Look at that, Jacksonville, it's knocking on your door by about noon. Look at that. You're going to be seeing tropical storm force winds as this system heads up the coast, 50 to 65 mile per hour gusts. And look at this. It might actually make it right onto the Atlantic side here. Let's take a look and see if it does. Yes, it does. Look at that. The GFS takes it a little just to the east of the track of the official National Hurricane Center track here. And look at it. It starts to become a massive rainmaker up here. Let's go out and see how far north this becomes. This is a bit troubling, and I'll show you some of the rainfall totals we're expecting because this is where the system does start to slow down over the Carolinas and parts of eastern Georgia and parts of the Appalachians. And this is not good news because the trough is lifted out by this point, and this is Saturday at 5 a.m. So look at this. This is a big change in what we originally saw. The leading shield of rain is all the way up to Harrisburg, Philadelphia, just south of Pittsburgh here. And look what's going on in Florida. We've completely shut off those feeder bands. The only feeder band that I can see is way out over the Atlantic here. So you're going to dry out pretty quick as this dry air rushes in here from the northwest into parts of Florida here. So watch this. See what the GFS shows here as we continue to go towards the north. Yeah, this is bad news for your weekend. If the GFS is right, this system may continue to go a bit further north here. You can see this is going to be pretty far to the north. We'll see what the Euro does, but look at that. It doesn't make it too far north. Most of upstate New York into northern New England escapes this before it slowly slides to the northeast here. You can see places like New Jersey, Long Island. Yeah, you could be seeing the remnants here of Hurricane Ian, and watch this as we continue to slide this out. Now, do we see any more tropical systems behind this? Well, the good news is I don't really see any chances of any other development areas. You know, we have this 60% chance out here, but that will be pretty much long gone by about the time this is October 6th. So look at this. Yeah, we get a few systems, and then we start to have another flare up here. This is towards Friday, October 7th. Take a look at this. This continues towards the northwest, and you see it approaches the Lesser Antilles by next, it's going to be the following weekend, Sunday, October 9th. There's our last frame. Take a look at that. So yeah, we could be looking at another tropical system here. Could it be our next named storm? It is quite a potential. All right, so let's take a look as we go overnight, Tuesday night into Wednesday. This is essentially your HRRR model, your future radar. Take a look at this. So yeah, this is going to be barreling right into parts of the southwestern Florida coastline here, just south of Tampa. So look at this. As we head towards 7 a.m., your big feeder band, not the main eyewall here, which is out here, but look at this. Cape Coral down to Naples and the Keys. Yeah, you're going to see the first wave push in of extreme amounts of wind here towards 7 a.m. So you're going to see some surge with this. And look at this, up towards Tampa. You're just going to be tremendous heavy rain and wind all night Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And look at this. Look how things just continue to line up here. This is towards 8 a.m. You can see, look at this. This is very ominous. Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Northport here. This is not looking good. Yeah, the system is wobbling just slightly east of where it was supposed to originally make landfall. And you see the HRRR model's doing a pretty good job. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of surge coming in here, as you can see on the east side of it, coming into Fort Myers Beach, right up here into parts of these bays and inlets. Port Charlotte, you're going to have a straight shot where these southerly winds come in and push all that water and pile it up. This is not looking very good here. And as we take a look, let's continue this in time. You start to see the eye wall towards 1 p.m. becomes a little more lopsided, starts to lose some of its punch, which is good news. But by that point, the water is already set in motion, and it's continuing to pummel these areas. So surge is continuing. Now, here in Tampa, once the eye is this point, initially you'll see a surge come in, as I said before, but then the wind's going to start to change more northerly and northwesterly. That's going to push the water towards the south here, which is good news for you, but bad news to your neighbors to the south that's already had tremendous amounts of water. And you can see towards 2 p.m. here, 3 p.m., you can see the eye walls making landfall right here. Look at this. These bays, Punta Gorda, Port Charlotte, Northport, this is bad news for you. This is tremendous amounts of wind and rain. Now you can see here on the radar, just like I was showing you on the GFS, all this dry air is getting pushed into the east, so it's helping cut off this eastern eye wall. But you're still going to see tremendous amounts of wind and rain, and look how this eye wall stays really well intact. Now, let's see how close here it gets to Tampa as we head throughout the evening hours of Wednesday here. You can see it starts to push up here. Sarasota, you're pretty much cut off by this point in Northport and Cape Coral. That's great news, but you're still in the eye at this point, a broken eye. You start to see here in Tampa, look at this. If you're on the south side of the bay, you're going to start seeing tremendous amounts of winds here coming in from the northeast. And this is where we'll start to see the water start to exit the bay here, which is good news because, you know, all these rivers and creeks leading into it will start to fill up because of all of this tremendous amounts of rainfall rates that will be occurring all night and all day into the Tampa Bay area. And you see, it looks like the worst of the eye wall continues towards the northeast, towards Lakeland and Orlando here. Watch this. As we go into 11 p.m., midnight, there it is, Thursday morning at 2 a.m., it becomes more of a linear threat. You can still see part of an eye wall here, which is really interesting, that it's actually the HRRR is actually heading it more towards the east here than the GFS and the major models. But take a look here. As we continue towards the east, the HRRR model wants to get it to the Atlantic a little bit quicker here. This is an interesting solution. All right, so let's see what the Euro is showing here. Look at this. The Euro is showing a strengthening storm here. Look at that, 947 millibars. This is, you know, early morning, Wednesday morning as the sun's coming up. Look at how it's plowing. It's unanimous at this point. It seems like the GFS and the Euro are pretty much agreeing. And you start to see, yeah, it starts to weaken a little bit, 956 millibars. But look at how the Euro takes it a jaunt just at the last minute up the coast. Just enough to give those bays here around Port Charlotte tremendous water. So the Euro is still showing a little bit wobbling to the west there, just at landfall, and then takes it literally up to the central part of the peninsula. And just look at that. The center just moves just east of Tampa. So it's going to be really close. This is, wow, this is Wednesday night into early Thursday morning here. Look at this. So yeah, it does start to slow down in forward speed. The Euro is a bit slower of a solution here. Look at this. And then this is Friday morning. It's entering the Atlantic. So yeah, the Euro is a little bit slower. This, I'll show you the upper air pattern. There is a reason for that. But it's very similar to the GFS and path here. Take a look at that. Brings it into eastern Georgia by Saturday morning, very early in the morning. All right, I wanted to show you briefly on the big picture of the Euro, how far north we can get through 90 hours here. So this moves inland over the Carolinas and eastern Georgia. And look at this. Yeah, you have this high pressure to the north in the northeast. I think that's going to be enough to protect most of you, except in southern Pennsylvania, southern New Jersey, parts of Long Island, and maybe parts of southeastern New England as we head into Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of next week. All right, so taking a look at the Euro here, this is the dry air versus the humid air. This is what, you know, is bad news for hurricanes. This good old green stuff here is good news. This is higher humidity. This is lower humidity. And watch how this gets funneled into the system. Not so pronounced as previous runs because this system isn't going to be moving this direction. It's going to be moving more towards the northeast. But watch this. We start to see this moisture as it nears the coast. We still see these really dark green rings. That still means it's going to have a very concentric eye. But as it approaches the coastline, see how these lighter browns and oranges start to wrap around the system? It starts to cut the system off, so to speak. It's starting to strangle the system of its moisture. And look at this. As we head towards, this is 2 or 3 a.m. Thursday morning, heading towards sunrise. Yeah, the dry air really starts to make its presence. So areas that saw the eastern eye wall will actually start to have humidity falls, which is crazy because north of you, you're going to have massive amounts of humidity on the north side of this eye wall as it moves towards Orlando. But look how that dry air just wraps just around the system like that. It just starts to cut off all those feeder bands, and it starts to resemble more of a subtropical system at this point. I see that comma shaped really developing. This is Thursday afternoon heading into the evening. It's coming right on the Atlantic side, and we might get, this system might try to regenerate somewhat. I'm not expecting, the system to become a hurricane once again, but look at this. Look at all this dry air getting funneled into it. Now you have one area of a feeder band that I was initially showing you on the GFS. It's showing up on the Euro too, but look how this just plows towards the north and the east. And look at this. This is really interesting to notice here on the Euro. This system kind of gets cut off because look at this. All its moisture sources get cut off. It kind of gets stalled up here into parts of the southern Appalachians, and you get all of this dry air. Now let's take a look at the GF. All right, so if you see in the GFS here, take a look as we put this into motion. Very, very similar to the Euro. Taking the landfall, still very concentric here, 966 millibars. It's a couple millibars higher at landfall than the Euro, but look at how quickly that dry air moves in. So South Florida, all your feeder bands will be cut off by, look at this, Thursday morning. So this is a classic comma head shape moving up through. And look at that. It tries its best to try to keep that moisture on the north side of the system, but there it is. It's at this point, it's becoming a classic subtropical system. You see, it's kind of cut off. It's still maintaining some of its inner core tropical characteristics, but by this point, look at this. Very well agreement in bringing all that dry air. Pretty remarkable how low the humidities, at this level of the atmosphere will be pushing in from the northwest here. All right, so we're taking a look at the surge forecast here. It is shifted the highest surge 8 to 12 feet here, middle of Longboat Key, all the way down to Bonita Beach here. Port Charlotte area, 6 to 9 feet down, all the way down to Everglades City here. So, yeah, we're looking at less surge here in Tampa. You're going to be on the northern part of the system, but still 4 to 6 feet, especially as the system initially comes in. You get that northern eye wall. But this is going to be a massive eye wall as it moves inshore, so definitely heed these storm surges. This is not going to be very good news, especially if you're in the red and the orange here. All right, so if we take a look at precipitation amounts, this is a side of the system that is very detrimental, and I was a bit concerned about this, and here it is. This is coming more in line with my area of thinking. The Euro is handling this very well. This is a major problem because, see, from Northport, 10 inches. Look at that. Tampa, you're right into this is getting up into the 10 to 15 inches. Tampa, Orlando, 13 inches. There's an area of 16 inches just south of Jacksonville. Jacksonville, 12 inches. And you're even getting up into parts of southeastern Georgia. We can't go much beyond Saturday here. But all these precipitation amounts are going to be heading towards the northeast here. Let's take a look at the GFS. All right, so if we take a look at the GFS here, take a look at this. Oh, wow. Yeah. This is what I was a little bit worried about. Take a look. There's some areas on the GFS, right, especially northeast of Orlando here, 22.5 inches. Tampa, right around 13 to 15 inches. Look we're getting off the scale here. 21 inches just south of Tampa. This is not completely out of the question here because the system does start to slow down in forward speed. And let's take a look at as it gets up into the Carolinas, into parts of the Mid-Atlantic. Let's take a look here. So let's take a look here as the bands of moisture move around this system into early next week. We'll take it through Wednesday here. Take a look at that. It's like from the PA Turnpike southward here. Look at this. Southern Pennsylvania, parts of Long Island, parts of southeastern New England. Anywhere south of this line, it looks like you could have significant precipitation. We're getting on the order of 1 to as much as 3.5, and look at those yellows, 4 inches here, widespread, and from Virginia, West Virginia, southward to the Carolinas. So you could have some isolated areas up to 4 to 6 inches here, and look at that, Delmarva, you're getting up into the 4 to 6 inch range pretty easily here over the weekend into early next week. There we go. Just briefly wanted to show you this on the GFS zoomed in. Take a look at that. So there you have it. it's going to be a very tight line here, demarcation zone. All this up here is mainly from systems and lake effect early in the forecast period. So this all is associated, south of this red line with our Hurricane Ian, or what remnants will be available by that time. All right, so taking a look at the Euro upper air pattern here, let's take a look as we put this into motion. Well, let's actually back this up. Here we go. So here's this trough that's slowly going to weaken here across the northeast. Here is the system. It's very similar on both the Euro and the GFS, which I'll show you the GFS momentarily. But here's the blocking going on. This trough can't go anywhere, so it simply just fizzles out and weakens. And as it does so, it kind of cuts what's left of Ian off here. And it's still a pretty formidable hurricane by Thursday here. But look, as we go in time, it slowly drifts towards the north and then eventually the northwest as you have this area of high pressure out here in the Atlantic. These winds coming around it, and then you have a blocking high to the north, so it has no place to go but retrograde here towards the west, and you can see that very pronounced here as the system simply cannot go east or towards the north. It simply goes towards the northwest and then starts drifting westward here. Now, taking a look at the GFS, it's pretty similar at this point. You can see there's unanimous agreement here, which you don't see this very often, but there's the high pressure starting to build in high to the north. The system kind of goes towards the northwest. So this is going to reemerge out over the Atlantic. And look how it heads towards the north, and eventually it gets a little bit further to the north here on the Euro, on the GFS than it does on the Euro, because this high pressure slowly retreats on the GFS and allows the system to come a little bit further to the north. But I don't think it's going to retreat quite that much before the next trough kicks in and finally kicks what's left of the system out over the open Atlantic. This is by Thursday, October 13th here, and you can see that's pretty far out, but there's the trough aligned here along the east coast. Western Pacific, we got some problems out here. Initial problem we have is Tropical Storm Kulop here. That, thankfully, will be heading off towards the northeast as a typhoon. Now, that could detrimentally create some weather problems here for North America. We'll get on that later. But take a look at this. This is a problem over here near Da Nang. It is literally going to make landfall potentially as a super typhoon. It's going to be really close. You're just borderlined here, but this system's going to be heading inland here, and this is going to smash right into the coast here. Let's back this up just a frame or two. You see how quickly it makes landfall. That's the only saving grace, but there will be tremendous wind and surge as it goes through Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And look how quickly it clears out Wednesday morning at 5 a.m. This is heading well inland. That is the only saving grace, as it won't have a chance to create so much tremendous flooding. But if you're in Da Nang and surrounding areas, let's back that up just a few frames. I am deeply worried for you because this is going to be a tremendous typhoon that moves in here, and we haven't seen one in quite some time now. Let's take a look behind it, see if there's any systems organizing. This is what I was a little worried about, is we're going to get into a pattern here for Vietnam and parts of the Philippines here. But take a look. We have another system. This is Thursday, September 29th. Let's see if this is still developing here on the GFS. You can see how that rides a little bit to the south, so it is a little bit different than the previous GFS model runs. It's more towards the southern part here of Vietnam. So as we continue to go in time here, let's take a look at the weekend. It potentially makes landfall as a weak tropical storm. And look at all that moisture. So you're going to be seeing tremendous amounts of rain here as we head into Southeast Asia and Southern Asia. But look at this. It clears out for the Philippines until, look at this. Yeah, we might see a period through the first week of October of quietness here. That's good news. As always, I want to thank you for joining me for this edition of Weather Eastern and Hurricane Eastern. Don't forget Facebook, social media, MediaMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Hurricane Northeastern, also Susquehanna Weather, also MediaMark.com, WeatherNortheastern.com, Twitter @WeatherEastern. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, hit that notification bell button if you haven't already. Question or comment down below. Let's keep the weather conversation going. Thanks for joining me.